I want to get into David's story. The market insights are really only one piece of the puzzle when it comes to building a really successful grain marketing strategy. But I think the real power is how you apply them to your farm business. And even then, sometimes the best laid plans can go off the rails. Things like weather, rising costs, equipment breakdowns, all of these unexpected challenges can really play on your emotions and often cloud your decision making fast. And that's exactly what happened to David. And David's experience really shows how tools like GrainFox can help you adapt to environmental and financial challenges quickly, improve your decision making around sales, inventory, budgeting, and really manage your cash flow expenses and your ROI. So in 2024, David faced a perfect storm. Severe drought, rising input costs, equipment failures, volatile markets. And despite it all, he was still able to avoid a loss and even turning a profit, when he didn't think that he was going to be able to. And really, he did that by leaning into GrainFox's farm wealth tools. So Farm Profile is where David manages his entire crop portfolio. Now, during the 2024 planting season, he entered what he had planted along with his expected yield. So at that time, he had planted 1,500 acres of canola, and at 48 bushels per acre, he expected 72,000 bushels at harvest. With 500 acres of wheat, and at 70 bushels per acre, he expected 35,000 bushels. Now, fast forward to harvest, the drought hit hard. And this, his canola yield was impacted. It went from 48 bushels per acre down to 35, leaving him with a loss of about 20,000 bushels. And his wheat also dropped from 70 bushels per acre down to 55. And again, he had a loss of 8,000 bushels. But now that he had his farm profile updated, he had a better picture of where he stood as far as his crop portfolio and could see the entire portfolio in one shot. So with lower yields, higher costs, equipment repairs to manage, he really needed a better picture of where he stood financially. And so he turned to the cash flow planner. This is where he updated his cash flow. He added any additional income like land lease income, carbon tax rebates, crop insurance, along with all of the changes to his expenses. So with his cash flow updated, this gave him a better view of his projected income versus his expenses. And he was able to plan month-by-month financials and really prioritize his spending. And this gave him a better idea of where he stood financially. Now, at the start of the year, when David was planning his crop season, he used the ROI calculator to see where he, stood for his potential profitability for his crops using provincial benchmarks. Because at the time, he didn't know what the final yield or input cost would be, so he just wanted to get an idea. So now using his actual yields and input costs, he recalculated his ROI to get a more accurate picture of his potential returns. And you can see here that with the drought at the start of the year compared to now, he had an additional $17,000 of unexpected costs that he needed to cover. So his next step was to review his sales strategy. Now, Smart Advisor uses current and historical market data along with your specific crop mix, your cash flow needs, your storage constraints, and your risk tolerance to really determine how much you should sell over a 2-month period and when the best day to sell is based on the current window. On the other hand, generic sales recommendations are exactly that. They're generic. And they're based on broad scale analysis, but it doesn't factor in things like your farm's unique situation, your storage capacity, your cash flow needs, etc. So with that in mind, David was able to see that after the changes he made in his farm profile and his cash flow and the ROI, the Smart Advisor recommendations had been updated as well to better meet his cash flow needs. So with Smart Advisor, he was able to spot optimal pricing windows, time his sales to achieve the best possible price, and more importantly, avoid panic selling during market dips. And that's especially important when, you're faced in stressful situations and emotions come into play. So with the harvest season somewhat behind him, he's already starting to plan his new crop while still managing his leftover inventory from last season. So let's do a recap on some of the tools that he was using during harvest and during the planting season. Again, he uses his farm profile to manage his entire crop portfolio. He can see what's been sold, what's unsold. He can track his inventory, sales, deliveries. He can also view detailed reports, including the potential value of his entire crop portfolio. With the ROI calculator, he can, see his potential profits using provincial or state benchmarks, which is great for planning at the start of the year, so you have an idea where your profitability lies. Or for a more accurate picture, he can use his actuals to really see his potential return on investment and where it stands against those provincial or state benchmarks. Another valuable tool is the scenario planner. This helps him, evaluate a range of potential outcomes for his farm by, analyzing the different combinations of yield, price, production costs for his crop in a, easy to read visual comparison matrix that shows his break-even points across various what-if scenarios. And this is where he can form sensitivity analysis and really refine his strategy based on, changing market conditions. And then with Cash Flow Planner, this is where he tracks his income and expenses on a month-by-month basis. He can make forecasts, set cash flow goals, and this is really what makes it easy for him to manage his farm finances. And then the best part is, with GrainFox, it takes the pain of trying to figure out the best time to sell by doing it for him using Smart Advisor. So like I mentioned earlier, Smart Advisor uses his farm data to deliver personalized sales recommendations that are specific to his farm situation. And that data is pulled from his farm profile, his cash flow planner, and his risk profile. So all that data that he's already entered flows into Smart Advisor. Now, the poll earlier that we had asked, we asked what the biggest challenge is when navigating the markets, and almost half of you said it was timing sales for profitability. And with Smart Advisor, he doesn't have to worry about timing the market. Smart Advisor does it for him. So it really takes that guesswork out of trying to decipher what's happening in the markets. So here's what David's story tells us. Drought and volatility don't have to derail your profitability. With the right tools, you can pivot quickly. And data-backed decisions really do drive stronger outcomes. And the moral of the story here is that grain marketing doesn't have to be hard. Keeping up with the markets and all of that is hard enough. Farming is hard enough. Your grain marketing doesn't have to be. And GrainFox really makes it easier so that you can focus more on farming and less on trying to figure out what's happening in the markets.